So guys, this is the new car. So guys, you'll notice I've got a shirt on today. Well, I'm in a Jag, guys. I'm in a Jag. This is the attire you're supposed to wear when you're a Jag driver. So, what can I tell you about this Jag? You've had a quick look at the outside. I did a bit of research. But basically, let's start from the beginning. The reason why I bought one of these X Types is I needed an estate car, and I wanted an economical estate car, and it needed to be automatic. Reason for that, guys, is as most of you will know, who follow this channel, I'm a car dealer, should I say. I run a small car dealership company. We're an online based company. We just sell cars online. People can view the cars, but we mainly sell online. So a lot of the cars, if there's any sort of damage, or it needs a door, or needs a wing, or sometimes if the bumpers are cracked, it's easier just to put a new bumper on and repair them. So I needed an estate car to get big enough to get basically a car bumper in, because that's sort of the biggest thing we move. Now the Jag X Type Estate is a rather nice size. It's bigger than previously. I had a Cupra. I had a Seat Leon Cupra Estate. It wasn't that big in the back. It was a lovely car, and it was very fast really for what it was. And it wasn't particularly bad on fuel. It wasn't great on fuel, but it wasn't too bad on fuel. But it doesn't compare to the boot on this Jag, which we'll have a look round later on in the video. It is a nice size boot in this, especially with the seats down. You know, could easily fit a car bumper in it, or just about anything that we need to pick up. So yeah, that was the sort of that was sort of the blueprint. It needed to be an estate car. It needed to be a diesel, really. It needed to be automatic. It needed to have Bluetooth, and it needed to have cruise control and all the sort of modern day features that you'd want. And it had to have a reasonably good sound system in it, because I like my music, especially if you sat on motorway for hours and hours on end. You know, I want a good sort of sound system in my car. It's to be honest, a sound system in a car, to me, it's sort of up at the top of priorities. I think second, it being automatic for me in a car is sort of the number one priority, and number two, it has to have a good sound system. So I read a lot of reviews on the X Type, a hell of a lot, and the X Type was unfairly slated. I remember when it was released. I'm old enough to remember that, and it was slated unfairly. I mean, at that time, Ford owned Jaguar, and so obviously a lot of the parts were shared with, you know, cross brands like they do. I think they owned Volvo at the time as well, and they owned quite a few companies at the time. So a lot of the parts were interchangeable between vehicles. Now, people called the X Type, they just said that it's just a Mondeo. But it was a pretty ignorant statement, really, because the X Types are very different to the Mondeo. Now, the first point to comment on the Mondeo statement is that it shares, I think, 19% of the parts with the Mondeo, and I think that's basically, a lot of that's a drivetrain and stuff. Maybe a window wiper. Window wipers might be the same, an odd thing. But other than that, if somebody didn't mention the word Ford to you, or you didn't know Ford were associated with Jaguar, which a lot don't, they would not look at this car and sit in it and drive it and associate with Ford in any way whatsoever. It's just in regards to looks and how they drive, they are completely as far away from a Mondeo as you can get. Now, that said, the Mondeo that this was based on was a very good car indeed, and I had a few, and I had an ST220 version of it, and it was an absolute awesome car. So even if there were any Ford DNA that were visible and you know you could put your finger on, it wouldn't be a bad thing because the Ford was a very good car. So it's not really a disservice calling it a Ford. Although it is in the fact that quality wise, on just about every level, the X Type is far superior than the Ford Mondeo. You can't really compare it in that. But that's not to say the Mondeo's a bad car. Those who have had Mondeos will know they're cracking cars, are Mondeos. Absolutely cracking cars. But I wanted the equipment, and I wasn't so bothered about leather, but I just liked the look of the X Type, to be honest. And I knew that it'd drive better than a Mondeo. And I'll be honest, I believe this is the first Jaguar I've ever driven. I might be wrong on that. I can't think of another Jaguar that I've ever driven, to be honest with you. And I couldn't believe how well it drove. It drove like a BMW of this era. This is an 08, an 09, so like you'd be talking what an E90 series, E92 BMW. It just drives like one of them. It really does. It feels weighted. It feels planted. I mean, it's a front wheel drive, but you wouldn't tell it were front wheel drive. I mean, a lot of the X drives were four wheel drive, but I think all the diesels were front wheel drive. Now, I bought this car from auction, so I wasn't sure what to expect. I'd done my research on the X Types, and I knew that the engine wise on them, they were pretty bulletproof. All the V6s were a really good engine in them. I mean, they were based on the Ford V6, which were in turn, I think, based on the Mazda V6. It was just a really good engine to start with. I think Jaguar took the V6 and Cosworth tuned them. I think they changed the heads and stuff, so the Jaguar V6 petrol's got a bit more power. Obviously I didn't want a V6, I wanted a diesel. So on the diesel front there's two options. There's 2 litre diesel and the 2.2 diesel. Both Ford units, both transit units. Now I knew the 2.2 diesel because I had many transits. Just to put windows down, guys. Absolutely red hot in here. I knew the 2.2 diesel very well because I've had many transit vans. And the 2.2 diesel is renowned as the best transit van for a best transit engine Ford ever made, and to today, even to today, it's still regarded as the best transit engine. I'm sure many people watching this video will know which engine I'm talking about. And it's just a really good engine. So, and they'll do big miles. They're a bit commercial. Well, they are a commercial engine, but they're on a chain. Ford don't even really stipulate if that chain should ever need changing. I mean, I would expect after 30 years or so, you may want to start looking at it. But it's because it's a commercial engine. There's not even a schedule for changing the timing chain on them. They just say that it's not something that's an issue. So I knew that were good. The weak point, the only weak point that I could find with the Jaguar X Types, and it came down to the gearboxes. The manuals, although the gearboxes themselves were pretty solid, they had a lot of issues with clutches going, and it took the flywheel, and they were going on when, to me, a clutch shouldn't go. On 50,000 miles, I don't expect a car clutch to go. So to me, a manual wasn't the way to go. Although they're not a bad car, I just don't think you should have to be changing clutches on them. That might be to do with the weight of the Jaguar. If it is based on a Ford clutch, say, being put into an heavier car like a Jaguar, maybe that explains the extra wear on the gearboxes, on the clutch. I don't know, but I had to have an automatic anyway, so I didn't look at the manuals. So I looked at the autos. Now the first auto that they released was a 5-speed, which, if you get the 2 litre diesel, is a 5-speed. The 2.2D came out much later on. I think it might have come out on an 07. Now the 2.2D came with the 6-speed auto. Now people wrongly judge all the automatics as being pretty bad gearboxes, and they're not bad gearboxes, generally speaking. Even the 5-speed. The 6-speed is definitely the better gearbox. It's the same gearbox used in Saabs, Volvos, BMW Minis, so they're a good gearbox. Very little goes wrong with them. So I laid down my plan, and it was going to be a X Type Estate, 2.2 diesel with the auto 6-speed gearbox. That was it. That's what I wanted. And mileage wise, I wasn't particularly bothered. I didn't want anything that had done 180,000 miles, but up to 150,000, I wasn't concerned, because I knew the gearbox and the engine could, you know, weren't an issue, and everything else about the X Type, they were pretty reliable. There wasn't a lot to go wrong with them really. They were a pretty well engineered car, which is ironic because most people's interpretation of Jaguars is a poorly built car, but the X Type wasn't poorly built. At that point, Jaguar were a pretty well run company. I mean, they had the S Type, they had the new XJ coming out, they launched the X. They were a good up and coming, I don't say up and coming company, but they were obviously a very old legacy company, but they sort of been rejuvenated with Ford. Unfortunately, Ford ended up, as we know, selling them, and they sort of dipped a bit after that, unfortunately. But the X Type, in my opinion, was a good car, and this were based on pure facts. I'd never driven it. Based on research. So in my mind, the 2.2 diesel auto 6-speed estate was the one that I had to have. So I found one on Copart. Yes, Copart guys, the place that I say never ever buy from, I bought from. Why? Because I knew it was going to be reasonable money. It wasn't a write-off or anything like that. It basically looked to me as though it'd been like a dealer part X, because you do get a lot of dealer part X through Copart. And it just looked a tidy old car. It had, previous owner checked, I'd had it 9 years. That's a good sign. It done 128,000 miles. Well, that's for this engine and gearbox. That were pretty low mileage. It were a blue colour, which you've seen, which I quite like. It's a facelift one, which were critical. Well, it had to be a facelift one. I wouldn't have had anything. Wouldn't have had a pre-facelift. It had to be a facelift car anyway. For me, I didn't like look of the earlier ones. The facelift was a better looking car. So we picked it up. So it was about a 3-hour drive to pick the car up from Copart. So I got there, anyway, after about 45-50 minutes they brought the car out, and it looked okay, it looked fine. It started up on the key, didn't need off its own battery, didn't need a jump pack on it, which is always a good sign. Just a good sign of a car that's been looked after, because the battery's held its charge. A lot of times if the car goes into an auction for a couple of months, the batteries go on them, because they're usually old tired batteries, but this must have a reasonable battery on it, because it was still holding its power. So that were a good start. It started a bit rough, like it was missing. 20 seconds or so, it cleared up. Well, anybody who's got the Transit 2.2 will know that's typical of the Transit engine. I think battery being a bit low, it's been stood ages, they're a bit grumpy, but they'll always start, but they're a bit grumpy and a bit rattly. Once it gets going, then it was perfect. The car we're happy with. I had a look round it, we're more than happy with it. So we hit it into drive, boom, out of there. About 30 seconds, I got a glow plug light flash, and then flash up, gearbox problem, gearbox fault, it actually says. I thought, marvellous. Now, for those who don't know about Jaguars, or even some Land Rovers, they come up with gearbox fault when it's something completely unrelated to the gearbox. Don't know why it is. It's a common known. You only have to go on to Jaguar, any Jaguar, or even Land Rover things, and they'll say, not all Land Rovers do it, but a lot of them, and a lot of this era Jaguar. I don't even know if new Jaguars might do it. I don't know, but that's why the gearboxes got slagged off a lot, because people thought it were the auto gearboxes that were the problem, and it wasn't. It's just that they were coming up as a gearbox fault when it actually wasn't, and a lot of people just scrapped them thinking. So car was sort of, it was as if I was stuck in 4th gear. I might have been in 3rd gear, 3rd or 4th, and it's a 6-speed gearbox, so I was doing sort of 65, I was doing 50 or 60, and we were at sort of 3,500 RPM. Well, they only revved to 4,500, so it was, you're obviously in a low gear. Anyway, I needed to get back, and it was still drivable. It had not affected the car other than it was just stuck in a gear and it was flashing. We pulled up over after a couple of hours. I turned it off, turned it back on. It had reset. As soon as I set off, it did the same thing again. Now, I'm currently going to go pick some additive up, because I've looked online and apparently the turbos get clogged on them, and it results in the issue that I'm seeing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go bop some additive in, so the next time you see me in the video I'll have put it in, and we'll continue this chat about the new daily Jag. Catch you in a bit. So guys, the additive's in. Let it do its stuff, eh? Whether that's going to fix it or not, you know, we just don't know. What I've done, I want to give it a double dousing. I've looked online and there's a stuff called, oh god, something like arden oil or something. I'll get its proper name on another video and let you guys know about it if it works. Which you can only get, I can only seem to buy it online. So, but I wanted to get, which I've ordered off Amazon, but it won't be here till tomorrow. So I went and bought just some from a local motor factor place, and it ain't the stuff that I wanted to put in, but it's just some turbo cleaner. So, but I'll bang that in. I've got half a tank in. I know you say you're supposed to put a full tank in, but I don't think it makes a lot of difference. So I'm going to let that run through for half a tank, see if that makes any difference, and then once I've done that half a tank, which will probably take me a week, I'll put in the arden oil stuff in, probably butchering the name of that, and we'll see what it does. So I'm just driving back now. What it tends to, if I'm really steady with the accelerator, guys, and it's over like relatively flat, you know, roads, it don't flag up the fault. It is like the car's going into, I had well, I've got a RAV4 which we use as a spare car, and that, when we bought that was the same, but it used to go into engine light, used to come up on that, and it'd go into a limp mode. But on Jags, they don't, of this area, they don't seem to do that. They seem to just come up with a gearbox fault rather than going into limp mode. So everyone thinks it's gearbox when it's in. Well, I'm saying that, guys, I'm hoping it in the gearbox, let's put it like that. But the car drives beautifully apart from that. So we'll see. Anyway, we'll fix it one way or another, guys, that's a fact. Well, if we don't fix it, it ain't going to be too bad, guys, and I'll tell you why that is. So we haven't talked about price. I paid a staggering £550 for this car from auction. There were obviously co-parts fees on. It came in at £818 all in. Guys, that's with 6-month MOT on it, in a tidy one, and it's an estate. You pay more for estates anyway. And with the 2.2 D auto, a lot of people are realising that's the one to, you know, the best one to go for. They're the most desirable one to buy, the estate with the 2.2 D auto. This car, I could probably, obviously, ensuring that we fix the issue with the whatever the issue is, we don't really know, but whatever the issue is, what we think's a turbo being cooked up. This car's a at least a £2.5 grand car. I mean, I saw one on the weekend. It was up at £1,900. Same car as this, but it had done 155,000 miles, or it might have done nearly 160,000 miles. But it was same car, same spec. It was a better colour than this. Although I do like this blue colour. And it sold within a few days of being on. So there's a market for them. So, and that were a price. I think no, that were a dealer selling it, but it were far cheaper than everyone else at that price. It were a bit got faults come up, guys. Look. You see? Now, I mean the car's still driving, but you just find that it restricts. You know, it'll only go into up so many gears. Or I don't even know if it just locks in a certain gear, to be honest, guys. I better not be holding this while I'm driving. That's a bit naughty, isn't it? Although I'm not on the phone, I am just recording, so don't smack me too hard. But yeah, but who knows, guys, who knows what it is. But as I say, I've only just put that additive in, so we'll let it get through half a tank. We'll once we use that half a tank, we'll bang in the better quality stuff that I've got. We'll bang that through, and then I'm going to see where we're at. There is another way. If that don't solve it, there's another way of cleaning turbo, and that involves drilling an hole. It sounds more drastic than it is. It just involves drilling an hole on the exhaust. I think he's called Mr. Muscles or Mr. Muscleman or something on YouTube. If you pull that in, he's done a famous video of how to fix it, because it's a very well-known problem. Is this? It doesn't always show itself. I mean, mine's showing a coil pack, not a coil pack, a glow plug light. They don't always show as a glow plug light, but they do quite often come up with gearbox fault. So we're gonna see what happens with that one. But I'm gonna do a couple of videos on this car anyway, guys. But I'll just show you. Once I park up down here, I'll pull over. I'll do a quick tour of the outside, and we'll call that a day for this video. But I am going to do a bit more content. I'm not going to do loads of content on it, because I know at the end of the day it's just an old banger. But I think I get more excited about cars like these, because you can just get such a good bag. You know, you get such a lot of car for not a lot of money. And this car's doing about 60. I think around town they say they do about 40 miles per gallon, and on motorway they're doing 60s. Some do it a bit above 60 in some cases. So you know what I mean. Anyway, let's take a look at the outside, guys, and see what you think of bodywork. So guys, catch you on the next one.